What's going on, everybody? Hey, thanks so much for joining us today for Build and Grow with Real Estate. My name is Josh Weidman, and typically I am joined here today, or joined on these weekly broadcasts with Judah Hoover, who had another commitment today, but I'm here, and we got a really awesome guest. This is Shane Manney of Five Stone Fight Club, and we're going to jump in and kind of talk about what he's been doing in Annville and around the world with his fight club and his ministry. So before we do, though, all right, tonight is the monthly meetup for Landlord and Investors Mastermind Group. So if you are looking for something to do, to go and learn about real estate investing, tonight is the night. Judah Hoover is the host, and we'll be getting things started at, I believe the doors open at 6:30, and the presentation starts at 7. If you get there at 6, there's plenty of people to talk to and to network with. Short-term rentals is going to be the topic, so that's kind of cool. You should check that out. So let me introduce our guest, because there's so much to cover today. Like, it's kind of exciting. I full disclosure, I coach wrestling with this guy, Shane Manney. And, Shane's a really interesting guy, because I heard about Shane Manney years before I actually got a chance to meet the guy. And he is married to my football coach's daughter from high school. And this guy, if you ever met Gump May, if you're from Central PA or, Hershey High School football, Gump May, I mean, he's a hard guy to get along with. You got to be the right type of personality. He's a hardcore, Marine. And don't you know it? His daughter marries a Marine.
It's the way it works sometimes, I guess.
That's right. And, but it's like, I heard about this guy, and then I heard he's coaching wrestling at Palmyra, and then I end up moving out here, and I hear a little bit more about him, and he's got this fight club and this ministry going on. I'm like, what the heck is this all about? And then I finally meet him, and I'm like, dude, this guy's doing some pretty serious stuff. I'm thinking, what the heck is this guy doing? So Shane, let's talk about you. Tell me about you. First of all, tell me about Five Stone Fight Club. What the heck is Five Stone?
So a couple of years ago, this whole thing started in my basement in 2008.
Okay.
What we were trying to address was basically, at the time I was working as a youth pastor. I'd been out of the Marine Corps. I got back from Iraq in 2004 and got out at the end of my commitment, and then just kind of trying to figure out what I want to do, right? And
Sure.
I've always thought like I'd love to get back, get into ministry or whatever. And I was like, I'd go to church, and I remember as a kid, walking through the church doors, and I just felt like, man, like where are all the men? Like, where are the solid, like manly men? Like I look at my dad, and I'm not, and that's not a cut. I'm just saying, like, I remember looking at my dad and being like, man, my dad, he's a beast. He's just a rough dude. He was a Marine, did 23 years in the Marine Corps. So I'm probably twisted because of that. I guess I got a little bit of brainwashing young, but yeah. My dad taught me to box when I was 10.
Okay.
I've wrestled since I was in kindergarten. So like everything I've known has been built around like combat sports or combat itself. Right.
Yeah.
So, I didn't necessarily fit into the normal church crowd, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So
you don't like putting on your Sunday best? You don't wear a tie 7 days a week? Come on.
Yeah, no, not even close. I go to work in sweats right now, man. So right. It's amazing. But
sure.
So that 18 to 35-year-old male was the largest dynamic, and it's been the largest dynamic that's missing in the church for a long time. And we couldn't figure out, I was like, man, like, where are all the dudes, right? So at the time I was going to school at Lancaster Bible College, and I met a friend down there. His name was Joe, who was a Muay Thai fighter. And he's like, we're talking, turns out he was a Marine. He was a police officer in South Carolina. I was a police officer in Richmond, Virginia. So we kind of bonded. And we had this thing where we just meet in the morning and we go train. And the next thing you know, we're like, man, like this is something, like the guys need this. Yeah. And so turns out we did some research, and looks like mixed martial arts is the fastest, what at the time was the fastest growing sport in history, and the largest dynamic was 18 to 45-year-old males. So I was like, man, like this is what we're doing anyways, and we'd have these long drawn out like brawls where we just bang for like an hour before
Yeah.
class, and then like six or seven in the morning we meet and we just do that and then go to class, and that we'd always have these like deep theological discussions, right afterward. We'd be like completely exhausted, hanging out and having these theological discussions. And I mean, obviously, we're going to Lancaster Bible College, so like usually you're spurned by something at the school. But I mean,
Sure.
but yeah, so that's kind of how we started. And then one day I'm in my yard. We started. I'm like, hey, I got mats at my house. You can come to my house. So, like I said, I wrestled for a long time. So I had like a 10x10 wrestling mat, a heavy bag, and like a set of weights. And so like a couple weeks later, all of a sudden I got 4 or 5 guys at the house, and and then we're lifting and we're boxing and fighting in the garage. And then my wife was cool enough. She's like, I'm like, can I move the cars out? And like we have a 2-car garage. Like, can I mat that? And she's like, you're out. Let me do that. And then next thing you know, I'm standing in my yard looking out. And I see like we got 40 people, and I'm like, holy smokes! Like I should probably get a place. So,
Right.
and then it hit me. I was like, man, this is ministry. Like this is it right here. So because those same theological discussions, we try to answer 5 things, right? Identity, your purpose, your calling, the training that you need to get you on mission. Those 5 things is what we try to address here at the gym. And there's a lot of ways that we kind of plug into that. We have the local, the regional, and then the international stuff. And we can get into that as you go. But that's basically down and dirty. I mean, we punch people in the face in the name of Jesus, I guess.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, all right. So let's give some context here. So you went from your garage or your garage into a place in Lebanon.
Correct.
Right.
Well, we moved in like 3 different garages. We were moving like every 3 months because we were outgrowing where we were.
Okay.
I mean, in most places we moved. We had a wood stove. The mats were like concrete.
Right.
You'd stand by the wood stove and get warm, and then when it was your turn, you take your stuff off and get in and bang, and then go stand by the wood stove when you're done. But yeah, we were all over the place. We were in a big warehouse. That's where I met my buddy Joel. I met Joel in this warehouse. It's a great story. I always say I got to take a leak on the floor of the Pagans clubhouse. So and
awesome.
Yeah, I had no idea, but
right.
But they came up to visit, obviously, and they're like, "Hey, man, whatever pipe you're peeing in," because there was no plumbing in this place we were at, because it's coming out on our floor. I'm like, "Oh,
man,
yeah." So yeah, a bunch of guys up there doing that, and that's how. And then Joel was down there working. He did some work with some of the guys, and he's like, I got somebody I need to bring up here, because when they came up, at the place we were at, the elevator opened up and you could see like our cage. And at this time we had picked up some different equipment. We were in a big old warehouse with like broken out windows and stuff. I'd spend all night, patching windows and whatnot. But yeah, we went from garage to garage to warehouse to a place that we're at now. I mean, it's been a crazy run.
Well, let's talk about this place that you're at now.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, as I heard I'm going to tell you my progression. Like last year during COVID, the Palmyra Mad Cats youth program was the only one that was open in the area. And so we decided to sign up, we go to the first practice, and then we got kicked out of the middle school. Right. And as soon as that happens, now we transition to 5 Stones. Yeah. And I drive down to the Lebanon address listed online, and I can't find the place. And I'm like, well, I guess we're not wrestling this year, But fast forward to this past spring, we talked, and you invite me down to your place, and I go down there, and right at the square in Annville, right behind the what the heck is it? The subway right there.
Yep.
Right. There's a parking lot, and right off the parking lot is this gigantic warehouse-looking place, and my goodness. This is 5 Stone, and you go in, and I walk in, and I'm seeing finished work, and until later, I didn't see the photos and the progress, but this place was a gutted shell with, without a roof on it. Yeah. And you guys come in there, rebuild it, make it a really viable part of the community.
Yeah.
Right down the street from
LVC.
Right from LVC. I mean, like literally walking distance.
Yeah.
And now you got kids walking in the door. It becomes a place to work out. And honestly, it's an incredible facility. You've got huge mat space. You got an octagon in there. You've got a boxing and kickboxing area and a full gym for weightlifting and stuff like that. I mean, it's a great facility, and it's pretty cool. But I do think that the facility is probably the least exciting part of what you're doing. So
No, I agree.
yeah, I want to progress to, first of all, if you're looking for a place to work out,
Yeah.
at least go check it out. They
Yeah,
run in, BJJ classes, wrestling classes, boxing and kickboxing and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, tell me about your overseas stuff. So one of the things that really shocked me about you the first time we met, you start telling me about how I'm going to this training, and then we're going to be going overseas, and I'm working with this other mission, and we salvage kids out of slavery, child slavery, and then I'm like shocked. Tell me about this. How did this progress, and tell me about your experiences with that.
Yeah, so it started out. So my wife always says I get rammy if I don't have a mission, and I it's true. All right. And so like the fight side of stuff would fill that void, but I was like, man, but there's got to be more to this, right? And I was getting my I met this guy named Victor Marks. He has All Things Possible Ministries, or ATP Ministries, and he was doing some work in Iraq. And I was like, man, I'd love to get back to Iraq in some capacity, right? And so I was like bugging him. I'm like, yo, I'll go with you. I'll go tomorrow. Like, let me know. And he's like, oh, no, can't do it. So I said, well, listen, man, I got to connect for ballistic helmets. If you need some ballistic helmets, I can hook you up. So a buddy of mine has assault tactical gear, and so like another vet, just good friend of mine, another Marine. So he's like, yeah, I got 5 of them. You can have them. So he gave me 5 of these helmets to ship out. So we get these things sent out, and I thought, well, that I did my part, you know what I mean, and now we're good. And I'm getting my truck worked on, and we don't have TV at the house, so I should say we don't have cable at the house. So I was in the garage, and we're watching the news. I'm watching the news, and I see these 2 guys. I see this Iraqi tank. Well, it's a U.S. tank now driven by the Iraqis. Drive up the road, and these 2 guys step out from behind it and suppress, while this other guy runs out and snatches this little girl up and brings it back. They're getting shot at by ISIS like crazy. And my first thing I noticed, I was like, that dude's wearing my helmet. Like, that's the first thing I noticed. And so I was like who? Like, and it wasn't who I sent the helmets to. So I was like, who is this? Like, how do I get hold of this guy? Right. So turns out his name was Dave Eubanks. And he was the founder of an organization called the Free Burma Rangers. There's a great documentary on Amazon Prime about the whole thing, and you can see actually what I was talking about, because it was on national news, so I was like, I need to get a hold of this guy, right? So of course I'm like the guy I sent the helmets to. I'm like, Victor, man, like you got to hook me up with this guy. Like I'll go tomorrow. Does he need people? Like I'll do whatever. And so he's like, well, I don't know. He sends the email out. And so he gives me email address. So I email him like, hey, Dave, love what you're doing. Can I any chance I could be a part? Whatever I can do, I'll do whatever. Just let me know. And like within hours, I get an email back, and it was like, when do you want to come? And it didn't even say Dave. It just said, when do you want to come, D? And I'm like, you tell me. Send. And he's like, how about 3 weeks or whatever? And I'm like, okay, done. So like 3 weeks later, I'm on a plane headed to Southeast Asia to meet Dave, and who I spoke to like 3 times, literally 3 sentences on email. I'm like, I don't even know this guy.
Wow.
So he picked me up at the airport, and that was kind of how we got started with overseas stuff. I met Muhammad, who is actually in the you see him. He gets shot up pretty bad actually in the movie. In the documentary, he's shot like 8 times, 1 time through the neck.
Wow.
I mean, I was talking to him because he plugged it with his finger. I'm like, dude, like what was going through your head? And I always laugh because he goes, I not be died today. I'm like, and I'm like, you not be. Wow. He's like, I'm not dying today. I'm like, that's like, he's a hard dude, and he's the softest spoken guy you ever meet. When you speak to him, he's like, Mr. Shane, how are you? I love you. Like, just awesome dude, right? But I met him in Thailand before we did some stuff right on the Burma border, and it was awesome. That was a great. I had my first experience with overseas stuff.
Well,
and so, go ahead.
Well, let's explore this a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, tell me about what the mission does. Like, what are
Yeah.
you? How did this come about? How did they get
Yeah.
involved? All that kind of stuff. And how'd you? Yeah, you just told us
Yeah.
how you got involved, but like,
So
what's the mission about?
so the missions itself, right? There's like multifaceted aspects for this, right? You
Yep.
have the one is, I mean, every time you look in scripture, you see when Jesus is hanging out, he's either hanging out with his guys and they're eating, right,
Hmm.
or they're feeding other people, right?
Okay.
So they're just building that relationship. We always say that it's not about a religion; it's about a relationship. So the first thing is about building those relationships, so we have the opportunity to share our faith. So humanitarian aid is one of the big ones. Medical missions is another one. So like on our last trip to Kurdistan, we were able to do medical training for missionaries who actually live there right on the Syrian border. So I mean, they're getting influx of people who are fleeing conflict, right? So I mean, the area is constantly in conflict. So I mean, that's a great, like if I said tactical combat casualty care or TCCC or
Yeah.
March protocol is what is basically just medical terminology stuff, right? For what we're showing. So we go through that kind of stuff. So there's, like I said, the humanitarian, the medical missions, and then the IDPs or internally displaced people.
Yeah.
There's camps, like refugee camps essentially. An IDP has not crossed the border. A refugee has come across the border, so they're no longer in their home nation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's these camps, and they can't go anywhere. Like that's where they live. So they're living in tent cities, and I mean it's really sad. I mean some of the little kids running around, and all they want to do is just play. I mean, so we'll go and we'll do some feedings, some food distribution, some clothing distribution because it's cold. We'll do coats and shoes. Some show up without shoes at all. So
Yeah.
I mean, they've walked across the desert in driving rain and sleet and
Wow.
snow, and I'm
Yeah.
like, these guys, like, I mean, it's just a really sad state. So that's some of the stuff we do, and then through all of those connections that we make there, we have, and I got to be careful how I say some of it. So we do some counter trafficking stuff
Hmm.
and some Bible smuggling operations.
Okay.
So, like, we smuggle Bibles into Iran.
Hmm.
That I mean, if you get caught with one in Iran, you lose your head. I mean, it's so. But and up to this point, we've done 25,000. We've got 25,000
Yeah.
from where we were at into they've, and from what I understand, they've made it all the way to Tehran.
So this is what's crazy. You might as well not smuggle one.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like,
Let's go
if
big,
they're
right?
taking
Yeah,
your head, give me a
yeah.
truckload, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. All right. So smuggling Bibles into banned places and smuggling out, stolen people, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so tell me about that. Like, because
Okay,
that's
so
crazy.
there's so we got linked up with so originally the trafficking part, that's new to us. And I say new to us, I mean we've been aware that it's happening, but for
Mhm.
us to be in a position where we're actually able to do something about it is now actually starting to change. So we're now we partner with an organization called the Children's Rescue Initiative,
Okay.
or CRI, and they've been doing some awesome work for years. They've been at this for years, and I mean, you can go on their website and check them out. But that's where we get a lot of our medical training. So we'll go out there and we'll do emergency medical responder courses with them, and they have a teams training where it's basically like an assessment and selection course for their organization.
Mhm.
So, but through those relationships that we've built, we've been able to basically form like cross line communications and networking that has allowed us to really kind of be in the same area, do the same work, share the same info, and they're able to help us guide through different things.
Okay.
Like on our last trip, I'll give a little bit of details. I don't want to blow OPSEC or anything like that. But so we found out that there was X amount of people being trafficked weekly or bi-weekly into this area, into a certain area.
Okay.
And so the hard part is when you first get there, you see it, and you might have a conversation with those guys that are doing it, and you might see the ones that are being trafficked,
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can do about it at the start because you're like, man, I like.
You just want to go and pick up the kids and run off, right?
Where am I going to take? How am I?
Yeah.
Like,
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do with that? So, so through connections that we've made through different various military things, like through the Peshmerga, which we've done. The Peshmerga is the Kurdish forces. We've done some training with those guys, some medical stuff, and through like different government organizations that are trying to fight the same stuff. Anyways, we've been able to kind of collaborate and help out there. So yeah, so I don't want to give too much stuff like away, but I mean that's kind of what we've been working on now. Now CRI itself, through our organization, through Five Stones, we have about 6 or 7 guys and girls that will be working with CRI, doing different rescues, and they're literally around the world. And so yeah, so I mean everything from they're trying to get into the domestic stuff. It's actually harder to do it stateside than it is to do it overseas, which is really sad. But I mean, because the problem's everywhere, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like I mean, and people don't necessarily understand too is there's like three main trades that it's not just sex trafficking, right? You have the sex trade, you have the organ trade, and you have the blood trade, and it's unbelievable how some of these things are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's shocking. We live in a really insulated world right here,
Right.
in a backyard. And, I think it's cool how, you're reaching out to this real darkness abroad, right? But
Yeah.
also here at home. So let's talk about the gym
Sure.
and talk about some of the classes that you guys run and about your Sunday service.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, so at the gym, like what if I wanted to become a member of your gym and come in and just work out and lift weights? How's that work?
So yeah, so you can come into the gym. I mean, we like you say, we have a full weight room. We have a CrossFit style or functional fitness section. We
Hmm.
have selectorized equipment, and then we have regular free weights, dumbbells, benches, all that good stuff. And some people just come in and be like, "Hey, I'd like a membership," and now they sign up for a membership and they go just use the gym.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and that's, I mean, they can come do that whenever. And then we have the fight side of things where we have different classes, right? So we have boxing or kickboxing, or MMA, whatever. We have that's in our striking section, and we have that 2 days a week. And then on the grappling side, we have the wrestling and the submission grappling, and that's 2 days a week as well. So we got basically 4 days of instruction, Monday through Thursday. Usually on Fridays and Saturdays are open mat or live rolling, so they can come in, you can wrestle or come in and roll jiu-jitsu or whatever. And that's kind of how the gym itself works. Now, through that, we're looking for those opportunities to make those connections, the personal connections, and then share our
sure,
faith that in that manner, right? Because I mean, honestly, if like you think about like, I mean, anybody else, unless you have a solid relationship with somebody, you're not going to really trust them, right? So
sure.
conversations are always guarded. But here, I mean, you get the same guys that you're punching in the face in the cage, or lifting weights with, or choking out in the mat room. You're gonna have like there's a bond there. It's a weird thing, I know, but it's
Yeah,
there. And so you can have those deep conversations. And the cool thing too, which I love about like the fight world, is like people. I get accused of being a jerk a lot because I'm very straightforward, right?
sure.
So,
Yeah,
but like that's how I need it. Like I don't I don't get offended when you're like, no, dude, you're wrong. Like, okay, well let's talk about it. Let's find out,
sure. Yeah, yeah,
And so like you can have those verbal sparring, if you will, and mental sparring or spiritual sparring even as you go, and you just punch each other in the face for 20 minutes. So now what's words? Words don't, whatever, that ain't gonna hurt me.
Well, okay, so this is really funny. Jordan Peterson has this in one of his talks. He talks about like the underlying threat of violence in a conversation between two men, and
Yeah.
and it keeps people in check because like nobody wants to get punched in the face unless they're prepared for it, right?
Right.
And so there's that innate underlying threat that keeps people respectful on both
Yeah.
sides. But I think when you get to the violent side,
Yeah.
when you're training with somebody in a
Yeah.
combat sport, all of a sudden those violations, those verbal violations, they don't hurt so much.
Yeah.
It's like the threat of violence has been removed because we already did
Right.
that. So it's
Yeah.
like let's just talk about whatever. And so sometimes that can be good, sometimes it can't be good, and it just is.
Yeah, it just is. And you're right. And so I'll tell you, it like you said, it's good and bad, right? So um the guys that come in to do it, uh, maybe that are new at the fight side, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes they're not really sure how to take our conversations because it's like
sure.
it is, they're like, whoa, this whole thing's new world, and
Well,
now
dude,
you know what I
well,
mean?
so it's funny you say that. So I think that a lot of times we live in a Facebook world, right? Where we never really get past the surface level of
Yeah,
interaction with people and they just see what we want them to see, right?
right.
That, um, I think combat sports in general get you to a deeper level of
Yeah,
respect, a deeper level of understanding of each other, and the respect goes a long way in hearing out what somebody else has to say. And
right.
we talked about this. Actually, we had this discussion last night, you and I, about specifically like my wife's political views and mine
Yeah,
don't necessarily align all the time.
sure.
And it's a heck of a lot easier for me to look at her and listen to her when I know that, hey, I love this person. I have tons of respect for them,
Right.
she has something to say that I don't necessarily agree with, but I should at least listen. And I
Yeah.
think that you get that. I mean, certainly not husband and wife intimacy, but like, a close
Yeah.
friendship at least, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. So when we talked about using the gym, now what other
Yeah.
classes, like what's it cost to be a member of the gym? What if I wanted to come in and take classes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we have a couple different levels of different things you can do, right? So right now we have. Well, let me back up. Um, Coming in March,
Hmm.
we're getting ready to actually drop our prices. So the
Nice.
gym, yeah, like we're like we want to make sure we're competitive, but we're actually going to go below the competitors. So the just to use just the weight room be $20 a month.
Hmm.
Um,
Great.
and when we go 24 hours, I think it's a $5 upgrade if you want to go 24 hours. So $25 a month gets you in for 24 hours a day. Now it's
Yeah.
only 6 days a week because we're closed on Sundays.
Okay.
But then that's just for the weight room. And then you have a specialist, which is basically just classes. So for $50 a month, you can come and take as many classes as you want. You just
Great.
don't have gym access. So you can
That's
come to
really good.
you can come to every boxing class, every kickboxing, every jiu-jitsu class you want. That's for 50
Yeah.
bucks a month. And
Cool.
then for 70 a month, that covers everything. So
So it's
you
a
can
weight room and your
come
classes.
exactly. Yep,
That's a
everything.
great deal.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
Now,
Beautiful.
also the church. I forgot to talk about church real quick. So, we have church on Sundays at 10:30 in
That's
our
cool.
ring room, and that whole thing started out of the COVID pandemic, where uh, we have a lot of people who've come out of addiction, right? So,
Hmm.
the worst thing you can do in addiction is isolate. So all of a sudden, people are starting to panic and they're like, dude, what are we going to do? Like, I can't be alone. This isn't good. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't let you alone. Like, that's not right. So if we truly care about you, like, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So all these churches began to close, and we're like, dude, you can't close the Hope Centers, man. Like, we got to figure this out.
Right.
So we started having church in the gym, and it started off like five guys, and we'd get around, we'd sing praise and worship, and we'd just kind of share testimony, and we'd work through scripture, and usually I'd preach, or Joel would preach, um, or people would share, have a prepared sermon,
Yeah.
and that would be it. And so right now, though, like it's been awesome. I mean, we're out of chairs right now. I have to go down to Allentown to pick up a church is donating another 50 chairs to us. So
Nice. That's
yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah, chairs are packed. We call them the pews. We bring the weight benches out from the weight room, and you can
Yep.
use them for pews.
Perfect.
Yeah, so,
Perfect.
it's totally chill. We have a full time pastor. He actually runs a martial arts studio in Palmyra, so
That's
called
great.
Chosen Martial Arts. He name's Lester Hicks. Great pastor. He was one of my hermeneutics professors down at Lancaster Bible College. So
Perfect.
yeah, so great conversations with him, and he teaches and preaches really well. But yeah, that's kind of what we got going on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really appreciate you joining me today
Yeah,
in Judah's stead and just telling us about Five Stone and your journey. It's really awesome. It's really
thanks,
fun
man. Thanks for
stuff. And
having me.
I'd love to have you back on and at some later time, you can give me an update on how things are going and give us some
Absolutely.
stories about some craziness that's happening in the world today,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. We could do that sometime for sure.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. All right, guys, that's it for today. I really appreciate you joining us. If you're looking for a hard money loan, give me a ring. You can call me at 717-213-8488 or visit us online at hardmoneybankers.com. If you would like to donate to Five Stone, you can, or better yet, get information about their trainings and workouts. You can go to fivestonefightclub.org. And to donate, it's fivestonefightclub.org/donate. That's it for today, and I'll be back here next week with Judah, and we'll be rocking it out next Thursday at noon. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week, and go make some money. Take care.